Welcome, welcome, everyone. Nice to see you. Welcome, welcome. Hi, friends online. So, I know I say this often, but I'm really excited for our practice tonight. And I'm excited for where we are in the book, which, I don't know, friends online probably can't see, but like we're almost at the end. And this is the part of the book where I'm like, you already said that like 6 or 7 times. So there's a nice redundancy going on. And there's also, this kind of beautiful spiral with this book, with these practices. So if this is your first night here or you've only been here a couple times, this chapter really offers us a trip right back to the beginning. And the beginning of this book is about what's called relative bodhicitta. And relative bodhicitta is what most of us are trying to do on the day-to-day basis. It's like these brief, applied ways we're trying to live the compassion that we want to see in the world. So on my way here, there was this everybody looks beautiful in the sun. Have you guys noticed? And it's just like the streets are teeming with people enjoying themselves. And I see this beautiful family, someone in a stroller, someone like in a little scooter, and 2 parent types. And the one in the stroller has this big, beautiful yellow flower, but it's the Datura flower, which is a neurotoxin. And so it's like in that moment, the relative bodhicitta is like, hey, I'm late to going to my class where I want to be with everyone, but I'd like to, in a not creepy way, this flower might be harmful to your little girl. And they asked me all about it, and they're like, through the flower, right? And that's, and I was like, just keep an eye out for the dilation of the pupils. And if anybody knows, there's these beautiful trees in the city, and they're beautiful, beautiful neurotoxin. So just, observe and love, but don't, get it too close to you. And these little simple acts on a day-to-day basis where we can help alleviate harm, that's relative bodhicitta. And we're doing it, hopefully, all the time because there's so many opportunities, so many opportunities. Anybody here have a relative bodhicitta opportunity today?
Well, I'm not usually singing.
I know, this is cool.
It's so weird. I just feel like it's important for me to make a practice of when I walk by people that seem to be either asleep or passed out or possibly not even alive on the street to stop, to not
Yeah.
walk by or step over. And I always make sure they're breathing. And then I've had conversations with various people about what is the course of action? Do I call 311 and the city helpline or not? And then where I'm at now is that if it's in the daytime and it's kind of sunny and warm, I'm guessing that people are taking a snooze because it's safe and it's warm.
Right.
And so then I just go on. But I always make sure people are breathing.
Beautiful.
And I never walk here from my house without having that particular opportunity, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Thanks, Mace. Yeah. Anybody else? Relative bodhicitta opportunity today? Yeah, Jimmy. And then I think I see Diane. Yeah.
Well, I was in a hurry to get here because I left my house late after we had met, and I made the intention of I'm not going to think anybody's an asshole on my way over here, and I won. I was able to.
Bodhicitta's totally winning.
Like I mentioned to you last week,
Yeah.
I've been listening to cello sonatas in the car a lot, and that's a
Love this.
very, very soothing
Yeah.
frequency and rhythm.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Diane, did you have a relative bodhicitta today? Let's hear
Yes,
it.
thank you. A few months ago, I was running
Oops.
down the stairs to get into the BART station to hurry up
She
and
is-
get
we
home,
think
and
we
there
need
was
a
a
little more
woman.
volume. Hold on 1 sec, Diane. 1 sec.
Okay.
We're gonna get some better volume in here.
So several months
Okay,
ago.
try again.
Can you hear me now?
Oh,
Can you hear me
Maybe
now?
get closer?
I'm really loud.
Is it working? Oh, no.
Can you hear me?
oh, there's so much relative bodhicitta happening right now. No problem.
Okay, Christine can hear me online, so I don't know why you can't hear me.
Oh, yeah, the speakers.
Okay.
Hey, now we gotcha. Now we're ready.
So, thank you so much. A few months ago, I was running down the stairs to hurry up and get on BART because I come all the way back to San Jose, and there was a young woman and she was having trouble getting up the stairs, and I didn't help her. I'm regretting that for the rest of my life. And so every time but today, I mean, so when I find things I can do, so today was one of them. I have to get like 100 to make up for that, or anyway, not to be glib about it, but anyway, running down the stairs to getting into BART. There was a lady with two big heavy suitcases. So I helped her in and I got her in, and she was going to my state. She was going on the way to the airport, and I helped her and I sat with her and we had a nice talk and I helped her get off. And so I'm always alert now because of that. I feel so bad about not helping that lady. So I'm always alert to seeing what I can do. And that's what's good.
Beautiful.
That's a gift of the practice, just being more alert to what's going on around you.
True. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's, so many of our practices actually help us with this readiness for relative bodhicitta. So many of you are familiar, and I sometimes quote this very apocryphal, this very famous study that I think was Darley and Batson, and it's called the Good Samaritan study. And the basic premise is you are taking people who don't know what the true purpose of the study is, and you tell them one by one, you have to give a lecture in 5 minutes. It's actually 6 blocks away and you're late, right? And the lecture is on being a good Samaritan, on helping other people. And then half of the people, you tell them, you have to give a lecture, it's 5 blocks away, you have 30 minutes, take your time. And then this is in the early 60s when it's less frequent to see folks on the street, resting, unhoused or otherwise, and they place this actor in the street who's kind of groaning. This is in between where they say they have to go and where they have to give the lecture. Every single person who told they were late did not stop. And all of these people are seminary students. I mean, they are, right, in the process or practice of becoming, people of the cloth. So I say that because, just as Diane was saying, some part of our practice, developing meta-awareness, can kind of give us that presence, that mindfulness of what's actually happening around me, right? What am I actually aware? And, walking here, luckily, to give a Dharma talk on compassion, I was aware of what was going on with this little girl and this flower. But very often we're so preoccupied that we don't even see the suffering around us. So that's such an essential part of bodhicitta is we have to even notice, notice there's challenge and difficulty. So the relative bodhicitta, a lot of the first part of this book is dedicated to how do we find, the clarity of heart, the clarity of mind, that kind of polishing the inner lens, as I like to call it. So we notice, the pain, the suffering, and then we can be available for it. And that readiness comes from the settled body, the settled heart, the settled mind. And then in this part where we are now in the book, is really about what's called this ultimate bodhicitta. And this is a bodhicitta that is, it like permeates everything, permeates how we see the world. It's not a reaction to the world, it's actually how we approach the world. And it's very beautiful and very hard to imagine living that way. Even if we're in a rush, even if we're in a bad mood, even if we're in pain, can the way we respond to the world be one of present and caring with the pain of others? So that's a much higher level. And in this chapter that we're in now, it's one of the final chapters, is called Dissolving the Barriers. And dissolving the barriers, or breaking down the barriers, really refers to equanimity and our ability to have this awakened heart, or I love how Pema calls it, not in this book, but in other of her writings and books, she calls bodhicitta the soft spot. Kind of just this, when I like to think of it as just that fundamental tenderness. So if awakened heart for all beings feels a little elusive or abstract, how can we connect to just this tenderness that we have for the suffering that we experience or for those around us. And then by cutting through the separateness or cutting through what's called self-cherishing, we feel that tenderness for everyone. No barriers, every single person. So that's the aspiration of ultimate bodhicitta. And it's a really nice one to have. And even if it can feel overwhelming, we have to be living into the world that we want to be living in, not the one that's here. So ultimate bodhicitta can be not this, God, I really blew it, because I wasn't able to feel that for this person or that person, or sometimes I feel it for them, but only when they're nice to me and not when they're in a bad mood. But we can hold this vision of like, what would it feel like to just rest in bodhicitta? And as I want to talk to you all tonight about, to make bodhicitta your true refuge. This term in Buddhism of refuge, is often where we can rest our heart, where we can feel protected and at ease. And this idea of, can bodhicitta be the true refuge of our heart instead of so many of the other things in the outer world, but also this idea that it's, in protecting or trying to make ourselves okay or control the environment around us, that refuge exists. But instead, that kind of very paradoxical, very confronting possibility that true refuge is in having a completely open heart, no barriers whatsoever. So we're going to explore that together. So it's kind of the beginning and then circling towards the end. And last week we had, of course, a special guest, and that was beautiful. And the week before, you may or may not have been here or may not remember, but we did do a practice of Tonglen, and we are going to do one again with a little bit of a different focus. I mean, this whole chapter is really on bodhicitta. And I shared this, on breaking down the barriers and ultimate bodhicitta. I shared this quote 2 weeks ago, and I love it again. This is one of the stanzas in this book, right? We have the 8th century text, and then we have the contemporary commentary, and this is from the 8th century text. And this says, "Seeing then the faults that come from cherishing myself," meaning recognizing that trying to make this world one where everything works for me doesn't work, right? It just makes me fixated and preoccupied. Seeing then the faults that come from cherishing myself and the oceanic qualities that come from loving others, I shall lay aside love of self and gain the habit of adopting others. And so the invitation here that hopefully we can touch into in our practice is the oceanic qualities that come from loving others. And, it's that feeling, again, I was in a little bit of a rush, and I'm not a seminary student, but I am a Dharma teacher. But I did feel a lot of love in like letting this little family know, like, hey, there might be a little bit of a harm with this flower that looks so innocent. And it feels so good to know that you are of service and doing good. And like oceanic quality, to me, that means that there's no boundary. And so often with Tonglen, we talk about that lack of a boundary, both in when we are extending, right? So Tonglen is the practice of giving and receiving or exchanging self for others. And I'm going to invite us to actually just practice for one person tonight again. And when we are extending it to this one person, it doesn't stop there. Like that extension, that radiance of our love, our care, our compassion, it just keeps going. It keeps flowing, right? It doesn't get stuck anywhere. There's no barrier. And then there's a similar part where when we're calling in and inviting this kind of, let me hold with you this challenge or this difficulty, it doesn't stop anywhere in us. Like there's nowhere that gets hooked or plugged up. So we can have this kind of, fluidness, like we are extending without boundary. We are receiving in without boundary. It doesn't get stuck in us. It just keeps flowing. So that's what makes this Tonglen more approachable I think, in a way. And so for folks who haven't done this practice before, the simple instructions are, we're going to bring to mind someone who we care about, who we know is struggling. And there might be a long list, but I invite you to choose just one person in your life. And you know, what's interesting about this practice, you don't have to even use someone that you know. You can. You don't even have to use someone who's even here still on this planet. A lot of folks have a lot of unresolved care and distress for loved ones who are passed. You can really practice Tonglen for loved ones no longer here with you. And that might be contradictory, like, but wait, it won't help them. It's like, do you know that? We really don't know. And then, you know, this practice, it helps us exercise the heart and exercise the capacity of the heart to keep caring. Right? Even when there's been difficulty. And sometimes when folks pass, we haven't had the chance to exercise the heart and the compassion needed. So you can practice for someone living, someone who has passed on, someone you know, someone you don't know. It can be helpful to know like a little bit about them, so you have some texture with it. And it's really useful to choose one person. You might have like a roster of folks on your worry list. I know I do. I'm a worry warrior, but like choose one person. And the little distinction in this practice than how we've practiced before, and this came up from, I can't remember, but someone had a beautiful question about they were practicing extending that care towards a person who's struggling, but what kept getting in the way was their own distress. And then what we're going to invite in this practice is right when we feel our own distress, we turn our Tonglen towards that. We turn our compassion right towards those difficult feelings, right? So then we can start working with folks who, you know, someone we know is struggling and suffering, likely we will have some distress. And instead of trying to be like, I'm pushing that away so that I can focus on care for them, we include those feelings, right? So. Most epic preamble. Sorry, not sorry. I like a good setup for the Tonglen. Are there any questions, especially if like for new folks about Tonglen? We're going to practice about 20-30 minutes, then we will have some discussion, reflection on the text. But any questions about the practice? Okay, and for folks in the room, we have Sarana at the door. Wait, did I see a hand? No, online, okay. Thank you, Sarana. So even if you hear loud noises outside, which you guys, it's bumping night. Like we're gonna get some good music going on here, might be some reveling. Just know that we are protected, we are safe here with Sarana. And, you know, giving yourself a moment to really feel into the collective space of this room. And for friends online, almost as though it was the first time in your space, just feeling into the space where you are, the other beings in it, the quality of the room. And Tonglen, which is a compassion practice, it's really important for us to have a posture that feels easeful, that feels supported. So taking some time to soften through the face and the chest and the belly. And then soften through the back of the head, through the neck and the shoulders. And bringing even a little sense of the shoulder blades touching so that the chest feels more open. Finding a place for the hands to rest in the lap where the neck doesn't feel too strained. So maybe on the knees or folded in the lap. And especially on warm days, and of course always at the end of the day, there can be this layer of dullness or haze. So we can support ourselves by having the eyes a little bit open to bring in brightness. And we'll start with some vase breathing here together to energize a bit in the subtle body. And so this practice of vase breathing is when we inhale all the way into the belly and actually invite the belly to protrude or push out a little bit. Hold for just a moment and then exhale slowly, slowly through the nostrils. So inhaling slowly all the way down, gently pushing out the belly. And then exhale, release through the nostrils. Let's do this 4 more times. And then continuing the protruding out or pushing out of the belly, but with the exhale now drawing the belly button back towards the spine. And then once again inhaling, feeling all the way up. And as you exhale, gently and slowly, but with that little bit of effort, pulling the belly button towards the spine. Let's continue this for 4 more breaths. And then return to the natural rhythm of the breath. And let's begin by feeling and noticing the sensations throughout the body as we settle the body into a natural state of stillness, stability, relaxation. And gently narrowing the focus a bit onto the breath once again, but this time just noticing the natural rhythm of the breath. As the whole body is breathing in, and feeling, sensing, or imagining the whole body breathing out. And don't worry at all if the mind is wandering, drifting. Just become more and more gentle, more and more precise as you relax and release and return over and over. Feeling, sensing, imagining the whole body breathing in, the whole body breathing out, and settling the speech. cutting through just this default mode of breathing without awareness, without attention, and bringing this full force of our curiosity and our presence to really feeling, noticing, sensing, or imagining the whole body breathing. Each breath in its own unique expression, deserving of our attention and awareness, training us again and again, right here, this breath, present moment. And then we settle the mind into its natural state, inviting this sense of deep relaxation and ease alongside a vividness and brightness. So, of course, the body is still here and settled. The breath is still here. We can keep part of our attention and awareness there. But for a couple moments, also leaning back and noticing the space of our awareness, the space of mind that truly has no boundary. Feeling, sensing, or imagining the sky-like quality of mind. In the first phase of our Tonglen practice together, sometimes described as flashing on spacious open awareness, or feeling the unbreakable, unboundaried nature of heart. So seeing if we can feel into that tenderness or that soft spot of the heart. Feel, sense, or imagine the way this heart is often receiving love and care, support, and attention. Sometimes from beings we would expect and know, and sometimes that love, affection, and care just coming from the outer world. A sense of our heart, this heart of compassion, is not one stable, solid thing. It's something infused with so many sources of love and care. Beings close to us, beings we just pass on the street or otherwise. From the deep care of this natural world, and a sense too of this heart in the way it transmits love, care, and affection. Always changing, always new ways that we are loving and caring, showing compassion. And so feeling that beautiful, essential, flowing quality of this heart of compassion. And how does this feel in the body? This sense of this ever-flowing heart of compassion, receiving, extending again and again. In this practice, we imagine that feeling of the heart of compassion as a sense of warmth and radiance, something we can extend towards others. And feel, sense, or imagine that radiant warmth at the heart center. And then we shift and use the memory, mind, imagination to bring to mind a being who we know is struggling, a being facing some difficulty or challenge, someone we want to dedicate our practice to. Bring them vividly to mind. Imagine them almost here in front of you. And feel the heart's natural quivering, natural care in the face of this being. And considering the magnitude or depth or difficulty of their challenges right here and now. Imagining these as a little swirling cloud of smoke. So we can invite them to pour out a little of their burden. We can invite that little swirling cloud of smoke to be hovering just in front of the belly button line. In that smoke is the myriad or maybe singular challenge of this person, whether it's mental or physical health, resources, other dangers or difficulties or loss. And feeling, sensing, and imagining that radiance of the heart, that warmth at the heart. And our practice is this heroic act of calling in, inviting in that difficulty, that swirling cloud, and then extending out joy and radiance, love and warmth from the heart. So with the next couple breaths on the inhale, we imagine, may I help you. May I support you in your difficulties and struggles. I am here with you. And in our exhale, I am sending love and care, warmth, compassion. So continuing very slowly and deliberately with that keen focus on this being and their struggles, really making palpable the need and feeling our compassion rise up to meet it. With the inhale, calling in, and with the exhale, extending that joy, that radiance, that warmth, that love. It can feel shaky or difficult to invite in the difficulties of this other being, yet they are already here. Feel, sense, or imagine the strength of the heart which is open, not contracted, not shut down, allowing that river, that ever-flowing sense of compassion to just be moved through. So again, with that aspiration of holding with this being, continuing to breathe in the difficulties, those swirls of smoke, and then radiating out that love and that care. If we feel that we know exactly what might support this person, we send that wish to them. May you feel held in your uncertainty. May you get better rest. May your body feel free from aches. We can be very specific and targeted, or keep it very broad and loving. And keep going. Keep inviting, keep opening, extending. And if you notice that hard feelings arise, stress, pain, overwhelm, then direct your practice right there. Feeling the difficulty or the overwhelm and opening your heart to it, radiating warmth to yourself. You may need to go back and forth like this, towards the other being, towards your own heart feelings, towards the other being again, and so on. Let's keep going here, targeted, focusing, breath by breath. A couple more moments here, maybe refreshing the image of this being, making real once again their struggles. I feel as though we're drawing in these final strands, these final swirls of smoke, where they're completely evaporated with the warmth of the heart, like the fog meeting the sun. And then we turn this relative bodhicitta compassion into ultimate bodhicitta compassion, imagining all beings who struggle like this one, all beings who, like this person we're practicing for, have these difficulties and challenges. And for just a couple breaths, bringing to mind this unfathomable amount of beings who share these struggles. Finding that willingness to open the heart even wider and radiating. May all these beings be freed from these challenges and difficulties. May all these beings experience the radiance of joy, compassion, kindness. Maybe there's no words at all, just the feeling. I feel, sense, and imagine this entire body, heart, mind radiating with compassion. Compassion streaming out in front of us, extending backwards from the heart, side to side, all directions. Just permeating beyond the space that we can even imagine, with this love, this compassion, this joy. And then releasing any idea of a target and just being a body, heart, and mind of joy and compassion and kindness, allowing bodhicitta to permeate all awareness. Feeling the tenderness, the soft spot. Feeling the presence of all the beings gathered here this evening and online. Radiant beings of compassion, tenderness. Returning to this breath, this body, this very moment. Thank you for your practice. Very beautiful to practice with you all. So, how incredible we're all here together as a one-time only, never in this configuration again community for tonight. And as such, we get to really embody and express ourselves as Sangha. And that word means, a community of friends on the path who, through our body, speech, and mind, we're acting in greatest compassion. And that means specifically that greatest compassion is non-harming. How, in the way that I express myself, can I really engage in thoughtfulness, kindness, aware of how my words and speech will impact others. And as I'm listening, can I engage in that non-harming, non-judging listening of what's being expressed? Because even if you come here all the time and think you kind of know some of the people here, I assure you, you don't. We are all so complex. It's amazing. And so we can give ourselves that freedom of just listening, just being present with, without a lot of elaboration or imposition, what's being shared from this place of resting compassion. So in order for us to have supportive discussion and, yes, the meditation really matters. However, the discussion matters as much, sometimes more, in terms of bringing it all home. So for us to engage in this unbelievably essential piece, can we all agree to enact those values of compassion? Yeah, great. Friends online too, sweet. So I'd love to hear any thoughts, reflections, or questions about that practice and about that opportunity to kind of break down the barriers. So we did a little bit of that relative bodhicitta, and then that ultimate or more open bodhicitta. So any questions, comments, reflections on the practice? And if you're here in this room, please use the mic, and friends online, you can raise a hand. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely. Just a reflection that the more compassion I set out to the individual that I was holding present, that the more, the better I felt. And then it just got to a point where, the vision that kept coming up was of my heart, kind of like those Himalayan salt lamps, that nice warm glow.
Yeah.
And I just kept thinking it was like covered in honey, and every time I breathe out, it was just like diffused the honey away. So it felt really nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's that like essential teaching of this text is self-cherishing doesn't actually feel that good. Like emanating this care for others feels really good, right? It actually is a source of our own well-being. Yes.
Wow, that was a really deep meditation for me. And I chose my father today because it's his birthday and my sister's at the same day. And he has been suffering quite a bit. And then I didn't realize how complicated that would be. I was like, it's my dad's birthday. And yeah. And wow, I was very, very resistant. Surprisingly, I was like, oh gosh, this is really hard to be with his suffering. And actually, my mind actually put him over here. I was trying to put him here, but it just was over here. It was like, that's about enough. But I just kept coming back I kept concentrating on the meditation and kept going back and going back and going back to myself and back to him. And eventually it happened. It kind of opened. I could feel that bodhicitta, that warmth arise. And then as you move to this, what did you say it? The bigger bodhicitta?
Ultimate. Yeah.
The ultimate. I could then really sit into with it. And then it almost felt like, almost trance-like my heart kind of took over. And then I was just in that, and I almost kind of, my body was kind of moving with it.
Yeah.
I kind of let go and lost control, or the resistance kind of fell, I think. So thanks, Dad.
Oh, happy birthday. And then can I ask in that more, trance is a good word, absorption might be the word, right? And what did it feel like in the body? What did the body feel like?
It was very warm. It was light. I could feel and see the light emanating.
Yeah.
My body was kind of, I was definitely well outside. I was in my body, but outside my body.
Beautiful.
So,
I mean, that is, according to traditions, that's the sacred architecture, right? So this is a body of light. There are channels of light. And when we get unblocked, right? So there was blocked.
yep.
Then we don't feel it. And then it's amazing just, that continuous attuning to yourself and then going back and then that allowed it to just flow, right? So
Yeah.
thank you.
So thank you.
So beautiful. Yeah. And it's, wow, picking people, like Pema has this one recording that I've listened to, I don't know, 5 billion times of Tonglen. And she's like, try your mother. And she's like, I know that's going to be hard. That's why I'm suggesting it. And and you're just like, wow, it's a retreat recording. So I give her, people were taken care of and, they're not just like, try the hardest. Because a lot of what happened or can happen in that, I know for certain family members I practice for, what gets in the way is they should do this, then they wouldn't suffer. Or I should do this and help. And I'm like not in the practice anymore, like, did that bring something up?
Yeah, totally. So I almost did my mom, but then I switched to the last minute. She's passed, but I still thought about it because you said could be anybody. So I have somebody in my life who care about a lot, and they are going through a lot of suffering, but a lot of physical suffering, and a lot of it is in my mind to some degree self-inflicted.
Yeah.
A lot of really bad physical habits.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of psychological things wrapped up in there. Like, for example, I only want to live as long as my dog's alive because they're the only thing I'm living for. Like these and so it's like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
And so our mutual friend Tig, he has this sort of practice of having concentric rings of sort of people in his life. And he says, you need to keep people at a certain distance in order to maintain compassion for them.
Yeah.
And so, so all that to say that, we're talking about kind of how you're able to get unstuck at some point and it was starting to flow. For me, there was a lot of sense of like a resentment, right?
Yeah.
So then when I was trying to sort of follow the guidance of, okay, then bring it back to me, it was a little bit difficult to get unstuck though. So it was a challenging piece. And so that's sort of where I landed.
Yeah. And, so good to see it too. Like, what was it like when you turned it towards the resentment? Like, did it just stay there or what did?
I think I was, eventually it felt like it started to loosen maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it felt like that a lot of it was just sort of like, there's just this like, why? Like, why is, this is unnecessary. Like this whole situation is unnecessary. So, so that was, the difficult part to really get over. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, with this no boundary or dissolving the barriers practice, we do really have to kind of hold forth with equanimity. Just the, topic we're really focusing on in the small groups right now. And when someone is struggling or suffering and some or a lot of it is their own making, the equanimity view is, I don't know how this is going to turn out. It could change. I'm not sure. And then also, I don't even know what led to this. I think I know, but maybe I don't. So it's like this, you're kind of, you're ventilating with little, rays of openness. You're like piercing through this is the way it is, but it shouldn't be this way, So like that little ventilation into it, that's the equanimity that allows it. Because otherwise our compassion feels kind of like, I don't know, I can't, because like, look at that, look at them, look at this, right? So it's, so thank you. Keep going. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely was practicing for someone where I was like wanting to fix. And, it's like, you just got to keep coming back of like, aw, you want to control it. That's cute. That's not going to, has that worked before? Like, no. So, yeah, thank you so much. Anyone else? Friends online? Friends? Yeah, Tori. I think just a heart. But I love the heart. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, similar experience, I think, it's Brett who just said. I chose someone that I thought I was gonna be like, yeah, okay, it's gonna be a good one. And then I was like, oh, this is harder than I expected. And then I just to reflect on like, I just was like, I started getting real just agitated and squirmy. And I'm sorry if I was loud in my squirminess. I was trying so hard to be quietly squirmy, which made it worse. And similar to what Brett shared, when we finally moved to the like sort of more bigger, just like a like a nice like big blanket, and then I was able to find more room in that to kind of like go back and be like, okay, what I meant to do in the first place was to like send you love. So yeah, it was surprisingly like agitating, and it helped to move to that like bigger picture at the end, and then be able to sort of like, if we would have stayed in the practice for like 20 more minutes, I probably could have gone back to the beginning part and been like more calm in it. But
Let's try that next time.
hey, just be here for
I
hours.
love that insight, though. I mean, I think that's, because I wonder if part of that ability to feel that ocean-like quality, right, that Shanti Deva describes. And, I got to see a beautiful mountain lake this weekend with like, when the sun sparkles on it like that way, and feel that sense of like, wow, this is pure love. And like everything is like that, beautiful moment, transcendent moment you can have in nature, and to feel that in our practice, like that big open sense of love. I wonder if we can get there easier by focusing on one person and then opening, but then going back. Like it all provides like a different quality of energy. So that's a really great insight, and it would be fun to kind of then, now that we've blown it all the way open, can we then redirect it? Yeah.
Try again, and I don't know, cycle through both. But
And it, that like agitation, a lot of it is like, it's so hard to tolerate the distress of people we love, and it's weird that all the other people who are distressed who we don't know, we're like, no problem, I got, it's like, so it is, common and somewhat understandable, because there is this fantasy that there's something we could do or something they should do, that personalization. So, thank you. Does anybody feel like the bells have gotten louder? Back door's open. Oh, cool. Okay. No, I like it. I like it, actually.
I was like, wow, that's intense. Then I was like, oh yeah, the back door's open.
That's cool. I kind of like it. For friends online, I don't know if you can hear this, but we get the bells. If you haven't been in the space before, we have electronically recorded church bells. Still beautiful. I know. We can just pretend. So any other like questions or challenges about Tonglen? This is not an easy practice, and some folks have described that already, but any other questions or reflections on the practice? Yes. Great, we've got 3.
Who was that?
Right here, Melissa.
I was thinking of a friend who I've known for years, and I know she struggles and, in different ways, and I sometimes get frustrated with her or impatient, and then I'm like sad about that later, especially when it's like extended time spent with her, where these like it manifests in different ways. And so I was just kind of thinking about her present situation and trying to, extend compassion and whatnot towards that. And then as I was doing it, I was like imagining her sitting here in the middle, and it was like all the things that she's very open about her life, and like kind of all the traumas throughout her life. They started unfolding, and which I tend to lose sight of. It's always like her present situation, and then I just I felt like a lot more compassion because it was kind of all there. And it just makes so much more sense. And at the same time, I wish I could hold that in the times where I, in those acute moments where I do get frustrated.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. Yeah. And I think, and doing that for one individual it's a microcosm of what we can do for everyone, right? Like everybody who are acting in these ways that seem like harmful or hurtful or wrong, right? Like, why would you? It's like again, that complexity that we just can't even know. Even the parts we think we know, there's so much more. Yeah. And that's infusing equanimity into our compassion. Like, I really care. Sometimes it's hard for me to care. And there's like so much I don't know still about the situation. So care is the only thing that makes sense, because whatever is the maybe misguided way this person is going about trying to create well-being and happiness, certainly that's what they seek. So, yeah, thank you. And did you have a question? Okay. Okay. Jimmy, did you have, no? Anyone online? Or else we'll go to Shanti Deva. All right. So, some of you know that this chair, while cool, is kind of like bowing in the middle these days. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the way to sit in this? Oh, wow. Yeah. This first set of stanzas here, we're on page now. I'm like bopping around a little, but 309. One of the things I do kind of admire and appreciate about these aspects of Shanti Deva's teaching is he'll often like bring up, as is in classic like Nalanda style debate, meaning this kind of Tibetan style debate, you bring up the opposite point of view that you have and you argue it out, and then you argue the other side and then argue it out. And this one point here, he's really trying to get us to see clearly, like, you gotta give up self-cherishing. Like, we gotta give it up. And again, self-cherishing being the sense of what is most important is preserving my own well-being. And the way to preserve my own well-being is to try to move towards what feels good and move away from what feels bad, and have everybody like see me in the way I want to be seen, and to, avoid loss and avoid pain. Like, it's just this very preoccupied self-absorption. And Pema starts off by saying, let's stop justifying ourselves with illogical excuses. We live in a self-centered prison called me. This misperception causes pain for everyone. How do we undercut the self-absorption that separates us? How do we become more broad-minded and open-hearted? We recognize that everybody is just like me. And this idea that one of the most powerful ways to undercut this sense of self, like either importance or self, like the insecure side or the elevated side of it's so hard for me or I'm so great, is really not feeling any kind of uniqueness in our pain or suffering. And Shanti Deva says, labeled continuity and aggregates, like strings of beads and armies, are like mirages. Likewise, there's no one hurt by suffering, for who is there to be oppressed by it? So this is a little bit convoluted, but deserves unpacking. He's using a Buddhist idea, which is that everything is not solid and fixed. Everything is actually, this all of the causes and conditions, all of the aggregates that come together to create whether a string of beads like mala or even an army, everything is like a mirage. So all phenomena and all experiences are actually empty of intrinsic inherent nature. And this is a core important Buddhist concept. Like, there are so many different causes and conditions that create a thing. There's no fixed thing. But then using this as an excuse, like, since there's no thing, then no one gets hurt by anything, right? So I don't need to practice bodhicitta. So it's like this really backwards logic. And he says, if there's no subject of suffering, mine and another's pain, how are they different? Simply then pain is pain. Because so, I will just dispel it. What grounds have you for all your strong distinctions? So he then kind of turns it on its head. And if there is no subject of suffering, so that if everything is always shifting and changing and there's no solid me, then everybody's pain is just pain. There's no my pain and your pain. There's just pain. So of course, like, let's just get rid of pain. Let's stop thinking of it as, let me get rid of my pain. I'm not caring about your pain. Maybe yours, but no, let's just get rid of pain. So it's this very like philosophical kind of heady way to look at like the emptiness of form and then the universality of pain, which is, I don't know, I had to read that like 17 times. I was like, what is he saying? But I kind of like this idea of like, if we can really connect to the emptiness of self, meaning, separateness of self, the construct or identity of self, recognizing that it's always changing and shifting, then it like, that can like relate to just the way that our unique pain is also changing and everybody's pain is changing, and pain is kind of like this shared element in the same way that the sun comes down on all of us and we wouldn't want the sun to disappear, and we don't want the winds to be strong on everyone. Like, we don't want these pains to permeate everyone. Like, we get out. Yeah. Good question. The question was he talking about pain or suffering? Suffering. Yeah, pain being like, of the inevitables, right? Old age, sickness, and death, and all the uncertainties surrounding that. But the suffering, right? The way that we then like latch on and fixate to it, like that possibility. Yeah.
Well, I would say in the sense that you're talking about the universality of it, that the difference between pain and suffering is almost moot, because it is, both are universal.
Yes.
We're all going to suffer old age, sickness, or we're all going to suffer aging, sickness, and death.
Right.
And most of us are going to add to that.
Yeah.
By tricking on it one way or another.
Yes. Good distinction.
But the idea that it's universal,
Yeah.
that everybody experiences, it goes for both of those things. That's even a deeper
Yeah.
sort of, oh shit, this is universal and inevitable.
Yeah.
Luckily, it's also impermanent.
Yeah, exactly. And we really can, that can feel overwhelming, right? That it's inevitable, it's permeating all of us. But there's also like, and there is, especially with suffering, some way to alleviate it. There is this opportunity to alleviate it. So Pema describes it as, we have a rationale for not practicing bodhicitta. This rationale is the rationale of emptiness. If everything is illusory, like a mirage, why worry about non-existent suffering? But if you weren't stuck in a solid sense of me, you'd understand that everyone's pain is the same. There's no difference between my pain and your pain. So using emptiness as an argument to support rather than refute the need for compassion, because pain is pain, I will dispel it for all beings. So and he does start to get a little clever, and really trying to kind of get us into this clear seeing that when we are separating ourselves, when we have that ego clinging, that self-cherishing, we're actually not preventing suffering. And there's this beautiful part, let's see here. Thus, the suffering of everyone should be dispelled, and there's no debate. To free myself from pain means freeing all. Otherwise, I suffer with the pain of beings. And that's this, you hear this kind of like, no one is free till we are all free. And in this level, he's kind of really unpacking it at the, because of the interdependence and interconnection of all beings, like anyone's suffering is our suffering. And we know that. And the choice is, do we want to have the pain of shutting out everyone's suffering or the pain of letting in everyone's suffering? Either way, it's suffering, right? This idea that like preventing creating a barrier or some kind of air quotes boundary between yourself and another's suffering, like we can't actually do it. It infiltrates, it's invisible, it has no shape or form. Like we experience the suffering of the world no matter how hard we try not to. So then are we willing to open to it and experience that quality of, the truth is when we practice Tonglen, when we practice compassion, part of it can kind of hurt, can kind of ache. But it's like a little bit of the ache. It's almost like that homeopathic dose of the poison to help you build up the immunity, right? To like create the more care and the bigger care and compassion there. And then Pema says, at the level of absolute truth, there is no reason to suffer. But at the relative level, we are all in considerable pain. The cause of our discontent is mistakenly feeling separate. This isn't based on anything tangible. It's on our beliefs and concepts, on the duality of subject and object, self and other. It's an illusion that is put on by the mind. This absolute understanding is arrived at through the practice of letting go. Meanwhile, we can work at the level of everyday pain and just treat other people's suffering as our own. So here she's talking at the same time about ultimate and relative pain. Right? So the relative pains, we're talking about ultimate and relative bodhicitta, but relative pain is, I think I'm separate, wrong, bad, worse than everyone, I'm comparing myself, all of those trappings of trying to be a me that's special. And then, that's a kind of relative level of how we bump up on pain. At the ultimate level, there's no pain. Right? And that seems a little strange because yes, if we're lucky, we get old, we certainly age, we will die, but that doesn't mean there has to be pain around it. That's the promise, right? That there's a possibility of all these things which are difficult and challenging and life-ending occurring, but that we could experience them without pain. So that's the and all we got to do is let go. So no problem, right? Yeah.
I have a comment.
Okay.
Yeah, having experienced that myself with addiction, I realized that meditation actually really saved my life. But the reality is that I was focused on my past and always stuck there, right? With the ego, front and center.
Yeah.
My past, my childhood, whatever it was, my future, my traumas, my worries.
Yeah.
When I finally just let go, like you said right now, and I was centered and I was here,
Yeah.
suddenly it was okay. God, you're not there anymore, right? And
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing. And I think that's what you meant about collective pain. It's like we're all worrying about the future or the past versus just being here.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So glad you're here. And I think it's, especially the trappings of like shame, regret, guilt, really prevent us from being here with ourselves in a loving way, really prevent us from being here with others in a loving way. And then this idea of like how the future is going to be, oh my God, what a delusion. Like we don't know. It's ridiculous. And we're totally like ripped out of, what is actually happening here. She also says, so this is the part here, that the sorrow felt in, she says pity, but it's really compassion. The sorrow, this is Shanti Deva. The sorrow felt in compassion aggravates, you say. The pain already felt, so why engender it? But can the sting of compassion be compared with all other beings have to suffer? So this is that concept I was bringing up. There's some sorrow felt in compassion. Like, why would I add to that? Like, why would I turn towards the suffering? Like, it already hurts that it's there. But can this pain, can the sting of opening ourselves to compassion compare with just the great suffering of all beings that's already there? So Pema says, the pain of compassion can make us decidedly more loving and tender-hearted. Certainly it hurts not to shut out other people's pain, but it heals the even greater pain of self-absorption. So again, this kind of paradoxical opportunity. By letting everybody in, we feel less alone, even if we're letting everybody and all their sorrows in here with us. And if through such a single pain, a multitude of sorrows can be remedied, such pain as this, a loving being strives to foster in himself and others. Those whose mind are practiced in this way, whose happiness is to soothe the pain of others, will venture in the hell of unremitting agony as swans sweep down upon a lotus lake. So, yeah, those whose minds are practiced in this way, meaning willing to turn towards suffering, whose happiness, who feel that oceanic happiness of soothing the pain of others, will venture into the hell of unremitting agony, aka our current political situation, as swans sweep down upon a lotus lake. Right?
I'm on my way.
But it's, and then again, the ocean-like immensity of joy, arising when all beings will be freed. Will this not be enough? Will this not satisfy? The wish for my own freedom? What is that? So when we really take into account the ocean-like immensity of joy, when all beings will be freed. So, and Pema suggests, could we become fearless enough to venture into places of unremitting agony? Could we do this as enthusiastically as swans sweeping down upon a lotus lake? She says, nothing gave Mother Teresa more pleasure than relieving suffering. Happiness for her was helping people die, knowing they were not alone. So like this does exist out there. We do see this possibility of the joy, this ocean-like immensity of joy in being able to be of service and feeling that. The work of bringing benefit to beings will not then make me proud and self-admiring. The happiness of others itself is my satisfaction. I do not expect another recompense. Just as I defend myself from all unpleasant happenings, however small, likewise I shall act for others' sake, to guard and shield them with compassion. So this stanza, don't put on like a hero's cape to do what is so rational to do, which is help others. Like, you should feel the accomplishment of it just in the satisfaction. Don't get proud and self-admiring. The happiness that you create in others, that's the satisfaction. And she says here, so earlier chapters focused on relative bodhicitta, that kind of primarily how do we help with, overcoming our own confusion so that we can alleviate the suffering of beings around us. But now we use the teachings to apply wherever you are. And, don't feel like you have to be Mother Teresa or a swan, swooping onto that lotus pond with every difficulty. Like, you can always apply compassion and this view of alleviating suffering wherever you are. Like, there's not anything too small with that. And then, let's see here. Those desiring speedily to be a refuge for themselves and other beings should interchange the terms of I and other, and thus embrace a sacred mystery. So this is where we get into just a little bit here of creating a refuge of our practice of bodhicitta. And refuge is such a beautiful term and concept in Buddhist practice. And you have whole retreats on refuge. We have 7 minutes on refuge here. But I want to mention that, this idea at the relative level, again, talking relative and ultimate, or kind of inner and outer actually is what's described with refuge. And this outer refuge, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, so these teachings, our practice, and our community, it's such a reliable refuge. And bodhicitta it's almost like the heart of all three. This tender spot, this desire to be of service, that is like the core of these refuges. And then we really can, through these practices, find that the deepest inner refuge is our own mind, and start to feel like that's a reliable place that we can rest. And that may not feel true for us all the time, right? Especially when we're triggered. So sometimes, we're like, yeah, this is a place of refuge. Like, I can feel that right now. This is available to me. Other times, it's like that hell realm. It's the unremitting agony, right? It's in our own mind. And so we need to have like the refuge both that's kind of supporting us from the outside, while also like creating that opportunity for refuge on the inside. And I taught for Chandra last week at the Alembic, and it happened to be the topic was on refuge. And I was really thinking about the kind of process of refuge and how there's this aspect of like trust in the Dharma and like trust in these practices, trust in your Sangha, trust in like the teachings themselves that lead to this kind of, and this is a word we don't all resonate to, but faith, which really is a confidence, like a spiritual confidence. And that's what allows refuge. Like you can't just like decide, I want the Buddhist practices to be my refuge. Like you actually have to walk through and feel them and have that sense of trustworthiness. So the Buddha would say, like, try it out as a blacksmith would try to try out whether something was actually made of gold. Burn it, bite it, try to bend it. So like apply yourself to these practices and then notice, like really clearly, is this of benefit to me and others in my life? And that's the trust from which we create like, oh, this is a refuge for me. Like this is a place of like safety. And I just love this idea of bodhicitta being our refuge. This heart, this tenderness, which sometimes can feel like I myself, and I know many other friends, practitioners who are like, if I would have known when I started practicing Buddhism how goddamn sensitive I'd get. I'm not sure. But like, no, it's like that sensitivity, like it actually is a refuge. Because the alternative is like being calloused and shut down and self-centered, and that misery of self-centeredness, right? That so much of this book is about. And it's really tricky because we have a lot of doubt and a lot of fear. That's part of this human experience. And when we have doubt around our practice or fear, like we're not doing it right, it can really prevent us from feeling the refuge. And I loved how many people tonight described, there's agitation or resistance, and then there's an opening too. And so to find refuge in bodhicitta doesn't necessarily mean it will always feel easy, but it means that like we recognize that opening our hearts to others, that's the kind of, we could call that, wise pain. And then the maybe not so wise pain is trying to push the pain and suffering of everyone else outside. Because the truth is there's pain and suffering. So like, what are our options? Let it in, push it out. It's kind of it. There can be nuances in the ways we do it. And bodhicitta is like, let it all the way in. Let everyone's in. And like, check it out. Like your heart actually keeps opening. And you get less contracted. So this refuge of bodhicitta is like refuge in like this outrageously open heart. So that's, I think, a nice place for us to do a little opening our heart here, setting back into intention. And taking a moment, coming back to the body and to the breath. And placing a hand on the heart to just recognize the immensity, the beauty, the potential of this heart. And feel that connection, that closeness, that heart, that love, that potential is always already here. Every single being has that potential, and every single being has all the obscurations and the weights, the tensions, the difficulties also. And recognizing that shared universal experience of boundless potential for happiness and boundless potential for suffering. We then place both hands together in front of the heart, if that feels natural. In this symbolic offering, may we dedicate this practice, our energy, our intention and aspiration to the myriad beings suffering in this world. May all beings everywhere experience love and belonging, sustenance, support. May all beings everywhere feel safe and protected from inner and outer harms. May all beings everywhere be free. Nice to have a musical outro. Friends online, we had our first drive-by with a real good musical situation happening. Thank you all for your presence.